D'abord dire mon plaisir et l'honneur que c'est d'accueillir Madame Aung San Suu Kyi ici, au Quai d'Orsay, où j'avais eu déjà l'occasion de l'accueillir il y a 1 an et demi, 2 ans. Elle nous fait l'honneur d'être en France et il y a une relation particulière qui s'est nouée entre Madame Aung San Suu Kyi et la France, et nous sommes très honorés de la confiance qu'elle nous accorde. La France, comme vous le savez, a constamment soutenu les aspirations des Birmans à la démocratie, au développement, aux droits de l'homme, et nous sommes tenus à vos côtés, Madame, parce que vous avez su et vous savez aujourd'hui incarner ces aspirations qui sont communes à tous les habitants de votre beau pays. Depuis votre élection à l'Assemblée nationale en avril 2012, nous avons suivi votre chemin. Le Parlement et l'opposition en son sein jouent un rôle de premier plan dans les évolutions qui sont intervenues. La France mène en Birmanie une politique que nous appelons d'engagement constructif. Nous avons un dialogue politique avec des échanges de haut niveau. Et nous avons aussi joué un rôle important dans l'évolution de la position de l'Union européenne dans le sens de l'engagement constructif, lorsque, par exemple, la levée des sanctions a été décidée. Et puis, nous sommes engagés sur le terrain. Il y a déjà très longtemps, un institut français à Rangoon avait été créé, et longtemps il a été un des rares espaces de liberté en Birmanie. Plus récemment, nous avons augmenté notre aide au développement. Nous menons des initiatives qui visent à renforcer la société civile et la liberté d'expression, par exemple en matière d'éducation, d'appui aux droits des femmes, et une école de journalisme qui est extrêmement originale. Et puis, il y a l'action engagée par des entreprises françaises pour favoriser toute une série d'investissements. Ce que je voudrais dire, et dont nous avons beaucoup discuté avec notre hôte, c'est que bien évidemment, quand on regarde la situation en la comparant à ce qui existait il y a 10 ans, il y a 15 ans, il y a eu un processus d'avancement de la démocratie, mais il faut rester extrêmement vigilant. Ceci vaut pour la France, mais pour la communauté internationale en général. D'autant plus vigilant qu'il y aura au maximum en novembre 2015, mais ça peut être avant, des élections qui sont une échéance fondamentale pour le processus. Et de ce point de vue, évidemment, nous serons très attentifs à la préparation des élections. Et un sujet qui est lié, c'est ce qu'on appelle la réforme constitutionnelle. Nous souhaitons des élections qui soient crédibles, auxquelles tous les candidats pourront participer sur un pied d'égalité. Ce n'est pas à nous immiscer dans le choix qui est souverain du peuple birman, mais nous souhaitons vivement qu'il y ait un processus de révision qui soit ouvert à toutes les parties et qu'il soit admis qu'un régime qui doit être totalement démocratique ne peut pas évidemment être, au sens où on l'entend ici, un régime militaire. La démocratie, cela signifie qu'il doit y avoir une égalité de tous les citoyens sans qu'il y ait une domination de tel ou tel. Nous serons également attentifs à ce que l'engagement pris par le président Thein lorsqu'il était à Paris de libérer tous les prisonniers politiques soit tenu. Nous sommes attentifs aux violences qui ont eu lieu entre différentes communautés. C'est une question très complexe, mais c'est évidemment une question de vive préoccupation pour la communauté internationale en général, comme pour la France. Et il n'est pas question qu'on puisse laisser le champ libre aux extrémistes, quels qu'ils soient. Et puis, nous sommes très attentifs aussi au processus de paix avec les différents groupes, parce que la paix et la démocratie, et le développement, tout ça est évidemment lié. Je terminerai en disant que dans cette période qui est compliquée, mais qui est porteuse d'espoir nouveau pour la Birmanie, Madame Aung San Suu Kyi, qui a su compter sur nous dans des temps très difficiles, sait qu'elle pourra continuer de compter sur la France, puisque la France, c'est le pays de la démocratie, et que Madame Aung San Suu Kyi incarne, on le sait, la démocratie.
Thank you. I've already said this morning when I was with the President that it's a great pleasure for me to be back in France and to be able to speak to all those in this country who have been so supportive of our cause for many years. The cause of democracy in Burma is an ongoing one. That is to say, we have by no means completed what we have been trying to do for the last 30 years. There is still much that needs to be done, and we would like all our friends and well-wishers to be aware of this. The Minister has mentioned the major issues with which we have to be coping at this moment. There's a lot of talk about the 2015 elections, and quite rightly so, because in many democratic transitions, it's not the first elections that count so much as the second elections. How do the second elections evolve, and how democratic are they? And whether or not real progress has been made will be judged by how the second round of elections go. A lot of people accept generally that perhaps the first elections are flawed to a certain extent. And certainly in my country, they were extremely flawed. This was admitted even by the United Nations, which is usually very conservative in such matters. Now we are in the run-up to the second elections, but the elections do not stand by themselves in 2015. Whatever happens in 2015 will be decided very much by what happens this year in 2014. We have many, many problems within the country, and we would like all our well-wishers to be aware of the complexity of these problems. There are no simple solutions to long-standing ethnic suspicions and lack of confidence between different communities. These need a lot of time and work in order to be resolved. And we, as the opposition, have our role to play, but we would also like you to be aware of the fact that the major role of this resolution of problems in the country has to be played by whichever government is at present in power. And that, I think, seems to be forgotten by many, partly because they have placed great expectations on our party. And I have to remind people repeatedly that we are only the opposition and not the government. And there's a limit to what we can do. There's a limit to our powers. We try our best to be what we think is a responsible opposition. That is to say, to point out the areas in which we feel that the government could do much more for the betterment of our country. But at the same time, we try to cooperate as far as possible with those in authority who are doing what is necessary for our country at this moment. We have a place in the legislature. There are not many of us. There are 46 NLD MPs in a legislature of over 600. This is just to remind you of how small our official position as an opposition is. Our support in the country is another matter. We are confident that we have the support of the majority of the people. But certainly in government, in one branch of government, the legislature, we have a role to play, but a very small one. We try to play it as responsibly as possible, and we try to cooperate with the ruling party in matters that we think would be of benefit to the nation. We do not, of course, agree with everything the government does. In fact, there are many things with which we disagree quite strongly. And this we have spoken about very, very frankly. For example, the fact that the President shows no intention of supporting amendments to the Constitution is a matter of great concern to us. If he is genuine about democratic reform, he must be in favor of amendments to a Constitution which institutes military rule as part of the political life of the country. You cannot claim that a Constitution that gives the military a particular position, a special and the strongest position in the political life of a nation, is democratic. This is what we are trying to change. It is not particular sections that we are concerned about so much as the concept of the Constitution as a democratic document. It is far from being a democratic document. If any of you has had the opportunity to study our Constitution, I do not think you would even raise any question as to whether or not it is democratic. You would realize that it is not democratic, and that any government that is serious about democratization must and should support amendments to this Constitution. And then we have the peace process, and we have the communal problems which are threatening the harmony with which different communities have lived in Burma for many, many decades, almost centuries. These are problems that all of us are concerned with, all the people in our country. But there is a question that has to be asked very seriously. Is the government doing enough to resolve these problems? Is it assuming its responsibilities as the democratically elected government that it claims to be? So these are the questions that we need to raise, and these are the questions to which we need to find answers, not in 2015, but before 2015, that the process of change in our country might be going in the right direction. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to come to France at this time and to be able to discuss with the President and with the Foreign Minister the concerns of our people and the concerns of those who wish to see democracy in Burma, whether they be Burmese or whether they be French or whether they belong to other countries in the world. All those who are concerned with promoting the cause of freedom and justice and peace in our country are our friends and well-wishers. But it is so important that all those who wish us well should be aware of what is going on in the country and should be able to look below the surface. And that is what I would like to urge all of you to do, not to judge what is happening by what seems obvious, but by trying to go below the surface and to study in more detail what is really happening in our country, that you may be able to give us a support in our efforts to make our country once again the peaceful and united country, united state that we had been at one time. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je crois que tout le monde comprend l'anglais. Je crois qu'il n'y avait pas de meilleure conclusion. Nos travaux ont permis, et nos conversations, d'aller below the surface, en dessous de la surface. Et quand Madame Aung San Suu Kyi parle de paix, de justice, de démocratie, personne mieux qu'elle, prix Nobel de la paix, ne peut l'incarner. Merci beaucoup.